Hi, my name's Tim Allen, and we are today with Dennis Cox of Friday Night Pizza in Phillipsburg. Dennis, thanks for being with us today. So, we want to talk a little bit about your business and your, pizza, and I guess let's start with how you got involved in pizza. What brought you to pizza?
How I got involved with pizza. I grew up back east, and this was kind of the fare. So everybody had pizza. Every neighborhood that I knew had a pizzeria in it of one sort or another. So you could get a Sicilian, a thicker crust, or buy a slice or whatever. And just grew up with pizza and moved out west in the 70s, and so the pizza hadn't quite made it out here yet. But I did get, into the burritos and what was available out here at the time. But I've always been interested in why there's a difference in the crusts. Why one is kind of really stretchy dough and the other one is just kind of like cardboard dough. So I got curious about that. I went back east and I visited a couple of the places, and I talked to some of the guys, and I got to understand the properties of dough a little bit more, what I was looking for in terms of flour and such, and started getting creating, and for 30 years talked about it, 20 years anyway, just talked about it with my wife, and then we moved to Phillipsburg. A couple of years in, it looked like there was an opportunity to do small scale Friday night, which was what I had envisioned. And so there you go. The rest is history, 11 years.
So you just took basically 2 decades to kind of build up in your brain what all the pieces of this look like, as far as the dough, the toppings, kind of what you thought you wanted to do, because you were working another job at the time when you kind of were thinking about all this.
Honestly, back in those years I was working in the woods, helicopter logging. And so if you imagine it's 10 degrees out, and now you've got this sky crane coming over your head, blowing a 90-mile-an-hour wind. I had occasion to think of better predicaments.
What else can I do?
And I would always think, boy, it would be much nicer snuggling up against a nice pizza oven one day. And then back there, I guess it was in the mid-'80s, really, when I made a decision. I actually had maybe some backing to open a place, and the Cascades, North Cascades in Washington, or to go back to school. And I ended up going back to school. So, but the idea was there. And when Sherry and I were moving here to rural Montana, we started thinking about, well, what's it take to be able to live in rural Montana? A job is part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, but what are some other ideas, that we might be able to play? And I wrote down on the list, my list, and it was something called Friday Night Pizza, just a little hole in the wall pizzeria to go for the most part. That's the way the pizzerias were when I grew up. It's not like you didn't have a place where you could go and have a big party.
Right.
They had those places, but a lot of the neighborhood places were much like what you see here. And people stop in, pick up their pie, go home or go to their event, go do what they're going to do, and so that's what I wanted to bring here. It's a wonderful community collector. It's a wonderful way of being. The community kind of owns these kinds of pizzerias.
Sure.
They're not the chain stores, and so it's more about community. But those were all lost after I grew up, moved out here, and you go back and now it's all the chains. And you look and you go, oh, hey, what happened to? Oh, yeah, they couldn't make it, and so a lot of those closed. So I'm trying to share my traditions with my community here in Montana.
And during the warmer months, you do a great job of that. I mean, there's people hanging around, people getting pizzas and taking them out.
Quite a lot. We're actually a year-round business. We 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I left my job. Fridays got too big to hold it, and so we opened on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and it took no time at all for those days to fill out pretty good. So you know.
I mean, this is
we have the kind of, we're fortunate in the kind of business that we have. It's not like we don't experience the shoulders of the season. Everybody does when you're in a visitor's economy, as we are. So there are fluctuations and greater fluctuations in the summertime, of course. Okay, but what we've noticed, especially over the last 5 years, is there's not a big dip during the wintertime. We have a ski hill, we have people coming to town on events.
Sure.
Strong chamber in this town, and, you know, and we make it happen year round.
So let's talk a little bit about those out-of-town people, because when you started getting a little recognition due to some articles and some people who are calling from all over the place.
Go figure. You know, I had this dream of just having a little hole-in-the-wall pizzeria, and I really figured that would probably be, and I thought, well, if I could even get a club together, you know, 15, 20 people a week wanted to have a pizza, well, that would support my hobby, and I'd be able to bring in a professional oven, do pizza the way that in my head, we did it. You know, so I lost my track here.
But we were talking about the out-of-town people, and now I remember, I think there was a pizza, an advertising piece that you
that was it. Thank you. Yeah. So we were open 1 year, and AAA magazine came out for the Northwest edition. I can't remember the article right now, but must stop pizzerias or whatever, you know. And there we were, you know. Somebody had written in, you know, and that brought some interest. Well, then we had Montana magazine came through, and they did a special on the town and included us in that, and that got us some notoriety out there. And I think there's a Outlaw magazine, maybe they came and did a write-up. And so then somebody did 15, Montana's top 15 mom and pops, and there we were. So you never know, you know, I mean, you just never know, who knows. But how we knew is we started getting calls from Spokane and Billings. And I was like, what? You're in Billings? You know, we're coming through. Well, I'm going to say something to you in a minute about that. We're coming through, and we'll be there at about this time. We heard we'd have to call early and order a pizza. Well, okay. You know, oh, it's fun. You know, I had a gentleman call at 10 minutes to 9 one night, and he says he wanted to order a pizza. I'm sure, and we're open till 9. What do you want? So he orders, and I said, okay. I said, well, you can have that ready in 15 minutes. He says, well, how far are you from Clinton? I said, Clinton? He says, yeah, I'm in Clinton. I'm headed your way. I said, well, I'll wait. I figured it was somebody local.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out it was a gentleman from Circle. He came in, and I says, hi, you know. I says, oh, I says, I thought you were somebody I might have known. He says, no, I'm from Circle. He says, I said, well, how did you find us? He says, well, he says, I went past Missoula and I forgot to stop. He says, so I just Googled pizza, and there you were.
Wow.
Go figure. I don't know, that was 10 years ago, you know. Amazing. You know, so some of the fun of it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing that people from that far away.
But you said delivery.
Right.
And I have to say this because when I worked for the state, I would have meetings in Missoula, Helena, Billings. a lot, you know. And so I like to say my furthest delivery is to Billings, right? Because I had colleagues and they'd say, "Hey, Dennis, can you bring us some pies?" So I would make them and I would freeze them and I would deliver them. And so that's my furthest delivery was to Billings.
And when we talked before, you kind of indicated that you kind of stumbled upon this freezing thing and found that it really didn't damage the pizza much.
That was a pretty amazing discovery, because what it did was open up new possibilities. And one of the things that I had always wanted to do is to be able to do pizza on the street. And everybody's got their version. You know, some people want to cook it in an oven right there on the street. If you just want to have a rotating pizza, you pick your slice on the street. My vision was to have pizza on the street by the slice that was stone baked.
Which is a tough deal with it.
It's a tough deal. Yeah, you know, and so orchestrating all of that, staying within the guidelines of the health department, transport, storage, all of that, was really mitigated when I realized I could freeze the pie. So that allowed us a lot of room so we could do different events, and we've done different events over the last 5 years. So we'll do the rodeo, like do the young rodeo.
Sure.
And we've got some events up here that we've
and I can speak to the value of that, because I've ordered pizzas here, taken home to my wife. You know, by the time you get the drumming 35 minutes later, it's kind of cooled off, and by the time you reheat it, it tastes exactly like the slice I snuck before I left.
That's you know, I mean, I try to tell everybody, heat your oven to 350, put your slice in there, give it 3 minutes of tops, take it out. You're eating pizza just like you would eat.
Yeah, it's just amazing. So this oven, so let's talk a little bit about your oven. I know this has got kind of a cool story behind it too, about how you happened upon this thing and what you were looking for a little bit in that oven.
Well, you know, I'll bet you I started looking, we opened Friday Night Pizza in February of 2007. I bet I can go back to my eBay searches in 1996, okay, and find my searching for pizza equipment. Because it's just something I've always been curious about. If I ever got the opportunity, what would it cost? How would you put this together? Da, 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 da. And so as soon as we decided that we were going to go ahead and do this and transform this from an apartment into a pizzeria, then I know, okay, I pressed the button and I ordered it. I wanted to cook in a Blodgett oven. My favorite Blodgett, I grew up with them, and you know, it's gas on a stone. It's great baking.
And so that takes a while, just so people understand. Can you kind of describe how that mechanism works? I mean, it takes a while to heat that stone to get it where you...
Well, you have to load the stone, yeah. So you always want to turn your ovens. You have to turn your ovens on hours early. In fact, some of the bigger places that are open, you know, every day and throughout the week, sometimes they'll leave their ovens on all night and just leave them on 24/7. It's easier on the stone. It's easier all the way around all the equipment. Reheating. So we don't have that problem here because we heat 3 days out of the week. So that's not an issue. But yeah, keeping your stone loaded. That's you know, I have personal experience in learning with that because when I thought maybe we would be, you know, a club or something of people who wanted. So I ordered the one oven, and it came in, set it up, started baking in it. By that summer, it had gotten really, I got home at night and going, wow, that oven is cooling down. And then I got another flat spot on the forehead, realized, oh, that's why God made stack ovens, right? So that you were on one. Yeah, okay. So Sherry said, you know, why don't you just get up in the morning, look on eBay, see what you find. oh, I got into a whining mood. And I'm like, but honey, I says, Logic makes a stainless steel jacket. We're going to have a mishmash. We got one black one from Huntington Beach, California, and now wherever I find one, we're going to have a silver one sitting on top of it. It's going to look bad. Oh, just see what you find. Well, I've been over these for years. There's just no black jacket.
Just not out there, man.
So I got up in the morning, and I got on eBay, and the third picture I looked at is this black Logic oven. Not only is it the black Logic oven, but it's the one that I need that fits the top of the one
the
I had.
exact piece. That's amazing.
And I'm like, whoa! I called her. I say, honest, you can't believe it. She goes, what? I told her, and she says, where is it? I said, I don't know. And I went back and I looked, and I couldn't believe it. It's from Rochester, New York.
Oh, right
I
there.
grew up.
Oh.
And looking at the age of that thing, I don't doubt that I've eaten pizza out of it before. I got around to those pizzerias,
Yeah. But that's cool. That is just the perfect piece.
Yeah. So a compliment there. So we like to say that we have a pizza oven from the West Coast and one from the East Coast, and here we are.
And there you go, your old and new world styles.
Old and new world style, our little Stanford tradition here in Southwest Montana.
So, without giving away any secrets, there's all kinds of things about crust. And you and I talked a little bit about how do you get those certain, I know you have a certain amount that you guys make it and store it and do all those kinds of things. Those are trade secrets. But what are just some of the generic things when people are messing with crusts and stuff? How does that work? I guess, can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, so when we take and mix these ingredients, right? So, basic ingredients to dough, right? so you got yeast, salt, and flour. Okay, but when you stir that together with water, right? You've got a primordial pool of life. This is now living; it's alive. Okay, and it has a cycle. So, if you let it sit right there in the bowl, you'll see that cycle advance rather rapidly.
Just like when you're making bread.
Just like bread, right? So it's going to rise. The yeast is spending, all the glutens are forming, everything is getting stretchy, gooey, and eventually it'll just get flat. It'll be nothing if you leave it there. So once you create it, then now you're talking about what kind of mouthfeel you want when you bake it.
Right.
Crumb structure, all of that technical stuff. Okay. And all of that comes into play in terms of how you handle your dough once you've made it. So,
and you're talking about the way you not only massage it and knead it, but the length of time.
The length of time, right? So we're definitely, once we create it, we've got to start managing it so that it's ready when I want to use it.
And so,
right? You can't cook on a cold dough, right? Too warm a dough, you won't be able to stretch, will fall apart. So managing your dough becomes very important.
And so you've got to hit it at the right time so you can do that spinny thing with that I know I would probably throw on the floor.
Yeah, and that's exactly. See, you want to be able to throw your dough and have it spin out. So the spinning is going to create the rib.
Around the edge.
Right? So if I rolled it, okay, that rib wouldn't be there, so you'd have this kind of flat pizza with no rim on it. Right? While the throwing is artistic, it looks good.
Cool.
Right? We all like that, right? And so, okay, while that is true, okay, the purpose, the technique of throwing the dough is to create the rib.
Wow. So now the stuff that goes on it. Now when we talked before, this still kind of is not, it's weird in my brain that you kind of compose these in your head and you don't really have a flop that you really felt like you put on a plate. That there wasn't really a pie that when it went from your head to the plate was really bad. And I mean, it seems like most people, they'll try 19 combinations and go, well, we like those 3. But you've got a palate up there. And so how do you do that?
Well, I mean, I guess that is, I guess it's part of the magic of pizza, But you don't know. I didn't know. I mean, when I was making pizzas at home, I would make them with different ingredients that people say, well, I never would have thought of that on pizza. But it's delicious. I like it. So, they were bolder tastes, than what you might expect on pizza. And so, but I realized that mixing a lot of these different bold tastes just created delicious pellets.
Yeah.
Pizza, right? When I realized that, people would give me that feedback and go, okay, so those flavors go together, this goes together, and in your head, you just kind of create this palette of tastes. So I call it painting with tastes.
Wow.
And basically, everything that we have on our menu and our specials, there's probably 40, 50 pizzas here, all of them, Sherry and I would get done early on when we first opened, because we only opened with a couple of pizzas,
yeah,
right? I mean, I only made a couple of pizzas at home, so I kind of had those, and then it was whatever you want to build yourself, and then we started right away with our specials, and so I think when we opened, we probably had a selection of 5 or 6, maybe. And then every Friday night, we go, hey, what would happen? What if we did chicken and put, I don't know, what's going to go with that? And how about an artichoke? And then we, just think up the rest and say, and she'd write it down. And it'd be sitting up there the next Friday, and when I'd come in, I'd make one, because we never made it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we never got to try it before it went out the door. And people would come back and he'd say, that's the best one yet. And they go like, wow, that's nuts, So, I mean, it's interactive and just a lot of fun, I mean, you want to see smiles on people's faces. At one time I wanted to say we don't sell pizzas, we sell smiles, and a free pizza comes with it.
So what are some of those? I mean, you use some unique ingredients. I mean, I think artichoke is one that I can't ever remember having on a pizza where I came from. So what are some of those things that you've kind of incorporated here that are really different?
So I became very selective. It's not just an artichoke heart, or
right.
Okay,
it's got to be a certain brand.
Well, I mean, you got to search that out,
right?
Okay, because some ingredients really are bold and they really punch you. There's some pepperoni that you can eat. And what was that? They're in your salami.
You can find out at the supermarket.
Right.
And
there's other pepperoni that just says, "Hi, I'm pepperoni."
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking for that kind of traditional, authentic, bold taste.
So, as somebody who is not a spicy pizza person, you incorporated something that I thought was a little scary at first, but actually, your sparks are phenomenal. And maybe, is it okay to talk about those? I know they're...
I'm telling you, I mean, one day I'm putting this pie together at home. And I've got my Italian sausage, I've got my sun-dried tomatoes, I've got my Kalamata olives, and I know that's going to really produce a pretty rich taste, especially if I get some gorgonzola on top of it, or feta, but in that case I went with the gorgonzola. It became the crowd pleaser, but it wasn't quite there. I tasted it and I'm like, what? I looked and I saw that jar of jalapenos. And I said, well, that's just going to be too much and overpowering, and nobody's going to order that pie with that.
And for me, that's
and so I said, well, wait a minute. And I took and I chopped these things up and I took and spread them
And we're talking about little
tiny, yeah, just the ring. You know, I took the ring, chopped it up, and then I just took and I spread it around, parked the pie in the oven, and it comes out, boom. That's it.
Man.
So I said, well, what are you going to call that? So instead of saying, do you want jalapenos on that? I said, do you want jalapeno sparks? And when they just became sparks.
Yeah, that's
so everybody knows it as sparks.
And so everything you use here, fresh, I mean...
Everything we use here is fresh. We
make your own dough.
Roast our own vegetables, we make our own dough. You know, everything we can make here we do. We like to have a hand in it. Yeah.
So. And
I don't use, we don't use a supplier. We use suppliers. Not afraid to drive away and spend a little bit in gas to go and get something that's really going to wow you.
And I think it's important because you drew a really good distinction about the difference between just kind of a regular pizza and what you kind of call an artisan pizza. And what you make here is not just your, if you want to just go get something at a store, you can slap it in an oven. It's
a good point, yeah. Yeah. So going back to those neighborhood pizzerias where I grew up in upstate New York, a lot of those are what you see. You see a wedge of pizza, slice of pizza, and oh, doggone it, I had a point and I just...
That's all right. I mean, it's just, you guys created a unique pizza.
Well, I guess what I want to say is that is New York style pizza that I grew up, okay? And so you've got a flat pie, it's been thrown, probably been thrown, traditionally it's been thrown, okay? And then what you're putting toppings, you're putting mozzarella on there, you're putting your sauce or mozzarella on that, and then whatever topping you like on that, and that's traditional New York style pizza. You put cheese on that, a little bit of flavor, and that's it. Or you put pepperoni on it, and that's it. There's your New York style pizza. Now, people get into making, hey, give me some pepperoni, mushroom sauce, and and give me the everything, and the meat lover and all, okay? But that's still a New York style pizza.
Right.
Okay. Now, as that was kind of going away, and you were being told that the pizza is, going to take this plate here and paint it with some ketchup, and create for you the $5 pizza. That's great. If you got kids, I can't blame you want a $5 pizza. That's great, okay? But it's not food.
Right.
Okay, you got to know if you're spending $5, okay, that's not food.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, well, so in the midst of all of this, some guy down in Northern California maybe, okay, throws a New York style pizza there, puts it down, and throws some smoked salmon, a little bit of spinach, right, some feta, and what's that? But people eat that and they're going, oh my God. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Now that's an artisan pizza, but it's marrying the old New York style, or not the old, there's still one piece of khakis New York style. He's marrying that New York style pizza platform, okay, with some very creative toppings. And so when I started doing that, I called it Old World Style, New World Tastes. Okay. And that's what we're trying to create here. So this is definitely a New York style pizza platform. But what you find on a lot of this pizza is not what you expect to find on a New York style pizza, what you would on an artisan pizza. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess maybe the last thing is that people will notice is when they walk in here to get a pizza or hang out for a bit, you have got the blues.
The blues.
Going the entire time you're here. And I noticed too when you made a pizza, before, there's kind of a motion to that. There's kind of a.
Yeah. That's very definitely there. So.
How did you come to a love of that? I mean, how did that happen?
I just listened to AM music growing up. I didn't listen to much, and if somebody had some music, I listened to whatever they had, but I wasn't really a music owner, you know, and I don't know how many years back, you know, somebody said, here, you know, and turned me on to a disc, and the next thing I know is I'm listening to John Lee Hooker or whatever, and I'm going like, oh, where do I get more of this, you know? I mean, I just never was into
Just kind of
music all that much, you know. I mean, I've always enjoyed whatever I've heard, you know, but the blues just really spoke to something in me, and so I fell in love with them. So they came to Friday Night Pizza, and everybody expects it, especially on a Friday night. Now, we'll listen to Willie's Roadhouse, you know, we'll listen to some good old Willie Nelson and the gang on Thursday nights, and Speed. The gentleman who was in here when you were coming in, Speed, certainly of that era. I think, I don't want to get in trouble. I think Speed's around 84, just 75. But that's his era too, you know. So we have fun listening in here and doing some work in here. And then on Saturday night, it's a mix. It could be anything. You never know. But probably the blues, but might be some little bit of country.
But always a lot of good food too. So
and good food and great people. You know, I think what we love most about this place is the community that comes in here and happens in this space right here. And it's tiny.
Yeah.
You know, but it'll be. You know, somebody will come in, they'll order their pizza, I tell them, you know what, it's going to be 5 minutes, and they're like, oh, okay, sit down here, and the next thing you know, somebody walks in and goes, hey, how do you know, oh, we'll eat here, you know, and so, you know, I've watched that molecule grow out the door, you know.
Well, so I tell you what, Dennis, thank you very much for your time today. And if you're looking for good food and great people and a good atmosphere, make you look at Friday Night Pizza, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and make sure you call ahead because there's a schedule and you got to get on it if you want to get your pizza on time.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd love to see you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. For QSPNLive.com, this is Tim Allen.